Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode number 40. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Monday, Steelers Nation, this Victory Monday for Steelers fans and the Steelers players. It appears Mike Tomlin has given the players a day off after their West Coast 24-17 victory over the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday. Pittsburgh now 4-2 on the season. Dave, we just mentioned it before we started the show here. They've done it again. It's the same way, almost identical to how they've won basically all 4 games this season, how they've won many of these past seasons. I mean, it feels like just go listen to an episode we've done earlier this year, and you probably get the same vibe from what happened yesterday, but happy for a win nonetheless.
The unsustainable remains sustainable.
And how long can the unsustainable be sustainable? We'll find out.
You know, I can't help but go back to that Chris Long on his podcast after the Ravens game saying, do you love these rock fights? These guys are the Floyd Mayweather of rock fights. He says, Mike Tomlin, I mean, he's undefeated. So the math here, in this situation, they are a great team. They are a great rock fight team. And somewhere within, I think that same episode, he said something to the effect of, you know, don't let the Steelers hang around, and parlay all this kind of into that, you know, what we talked about after, I think, the Ravens game as well too, with you know, the Joey Porter interaction with Tomlin, and us talking about how, you know, these players just love Mike Tomlin and play hard for him. And I think you wrap all that up into one, and I mean, they did it again. I mean, you know, a game that you kind of felt that even there at the end with a couple of those bonehead, you know, penalties for taunting, you thought, man, are they going to let this one slip away? But they obviously didn't. And I tell you, another kind of astounding fact when you look, it doesn't feel like it, I guess, but when you look back at this team going all the way back to last year's bye week, which was in week 9 of the 2022 season, the Steelers are somehow 11-4. Dating back to their 2022 bye week, which once again was in week 9. Their 4 losses, you know, since then were to the Bengals and Ravens last year, and then obviously the 49ers and the Texans this year. So, I mean, 15 games. It doesn't feel like it, but I mean, that's what it is. They're 11-4, you know, dating back to their bye week. And yeah, you can say, well, some of those games late. It's hard to win games in the NFL. I mean, we see that week in and week out, right? So, I mean, if you win a game in the NFL, it's something. And to go 11-4, dating back to their bye week, especially with kind of what we at least view these teams that they have fielded, and obviously rookie quarterback and offensive line and defensive warts. I mean, you got to take your hat off and hand it to Mike Tomlin.
You do. And I wonder, how is that the best record in football since then? I think the Eagles, the 49ers, I just checked the Bengals, I think are slightly better, but that's got to be one of the top 5 records in football over that span.
Your record is what it says it is, right? And I mean, once again, you know, style points isn't their thing, and I mean, they're I'll just wrap it back up with this. They're a great rock fighting team.
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes back to what I've talked about. I've had the stats. I had it Monday, I believe, after the bye, how well this team does in close games. Since 2007, no team has played in more one-possession games than the Pittsburgh Steelers. No team has a better winning percentage in one-possession games than the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's true if you look at 2021 to 2023, and I believe over the last 2 years, I want to say, just working off memory here, I think Pittsburgh is now 11-5 in 2022 and 2023 in one possession games. And so even in the post-Ben era, where you could say he was clutch and he was the master at the fourth quarter comeback, you remove him, this team is still has a top 5 one possession game record. And so when it's close, when it's late, Pittsburgh finds a way to win. And that's what they did on Sunday against the Rams.
Yeah, and the Rams, played their part in it, but once again, you can't control, what the other team does. Man, can you imagine if Mike Tomlin had run out of timeouts and the spot of that football there at the end on the quarterback sneak of Kenny Pickett? Can you imagine what the outcry would be? I mean, it's one of those, I guess, why talk about hypotheticals, but your mind races several different ways, especially after a game like this. But man, they just keep winning. And we keep saying that, it's not sustainable, but they've sustained it enough to go 11-4, dating back to and look, as a whole, yesterday, I mean, from start, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of warts that we're going to get to and some bad, in that game yesterday. But I mean, it was a better all around performance. Sure.
It was
for them, and especially on the offensive side of football. Maybe not for 3 quarters like you'd like to see it. It still felt clunky, but that clunkiness had a better shine to it, I think, overall on the offensive side of the football. And man, you keep they have not obviously played their best football and haven't had a complete game and yada yada, but I think one of my main takeaways, at least on the offensive side of football, was it was better.
You're right. They've not had a complete game. They had their best, to me, quarter of the season last night or yesterday in the fourth quarter. I thought that was the best 15 minutes they played the entire season, both offense and defense. Let me just give you one.
Kenny Pickett's too. That was probably his single best quarter of football that he's played, right? 7-7.
Oh yeah. I mean, the Ravens game was good too, but I think this one just overall was better. Let me just give you my favorite stat from Stats of the Weird, just to put a bow on this, how this team finds ways to win, despite you kind of wonder if you're a national media analyst, how does this team find ways to win? Pittsburgh 4-2 on the season. They have not had more plays from scrimmage, total yardage, or first downs than their opponent in any of the 6 games they played this year. They have been outproduced in all 3 categories in every single game, and yet they are 4-2. That has to be the only team in the world that can do that. And that's a compliment, but it just kind of blows my mind about seeing some of these baseline figures matched with the record.
The math certainly does not math when it comes to that, but once again, they are 4-2. And man, if I would have told you after they got blown out by the 49ers in week 1 that this team would be 4-2 at this point, not sure how many people, I wouldn't have believed it. But here they are, and now you got an opportunity to really make a statement at home in week 8 against the Jaguars, a team that's 1 spot ahead of you in the conference rankings. And once again, they'll this, I don't know if this will end up a pick'em game or the Jaguars favored by a point or whatnot, but people will have their doubts about the Steelers heading into this one, especially with the Jaguars coming off of a long week because they played on Thursday and all. But all right, let's get into this thing.
Yeah, let's do it here, Dave. Let's just reset here briefly and talk about what happened in the lead up to this game since our last Friday show. Quick injury roundup exiting the Rams game. Pittsburgh generally seemingly healthy. Only person that Mike Tomlin named post-game from an injury standpoint was linebacker Cole Holcomb, who suffered an ankle injury, I believe, to the right ankle, but he did return. So, should be good to go for the Jacksonville game as things stand right now. We'll hear from Tomlin on Tuesday for some more injury information. Pittsburgh making roster moves prior to the game. They officially activated wide receiver Deontay Johnson from IR to the team's 53-man roster. He played on Sunday. Of course, the team released wide receiver Gunnar Olszewski. And the unfortunate news here is that tight end Pat Freiermuth, who we expected to not play in the Rams game due to an aggravation of his hamstring injury, he has now been placed on injured reserve, meaning he'll miss the next couple of weeks at least. And so that's the unfortunate situation with Freiermuth, but it was good to get Deontay Johnson back. Anthony McFarland, by the way, remains on IR. We'll see if he gets activated for Sunday's game against the Jaguars.
Yeah, went into that one yesterday, another 52-man roster for them. They only had 4 inactive players because of that, and those were Mason Rudolph was the third quarterback inactive. Dylan Cook back to the inactive list with a couple of the offensive linemen back. Braden Fajoko back on the inactive list with DeMarvin Leal healthy. And who am I missing?
Yeah, I'm trying to see who the other one was. Those were the 3 that I had in mind. And Darius Rush, the newly signed corner.
Yeah, and that was kind of to be expected with him being a newcomer and them having 11 defensive backs on the 53 and knowing that one of them had to be probably inactive there. So a little bit of a change. Igwe, the running back, was active for the first time since he's joined the team, and that was a byproduct of the team parting ways with both Desmond King and Gunnar Olszewski, and that allowed him to be the kickoff returner.
And he had one short run back, and that was, what he contributed in this game. All right, Dave, let's get to the game itself. Again, 24-17 victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Los Angeles Rams. Offense, defense, where do you want to start here, Dave?
Yeah, let's start on the offensive side of football.
Okay. Yeah, again, it was typical Steelers where the first 3 quarters were lackluster, 3 points at halftime, kind of slogging your way through. And then, whenever the Steelers play this home game against Jacksonville, can they just put on the Acrisure Stadium scoreboard just 4 in the quarter column for the entire game? Because that's when Pittsburgh really comes alive. And it's almost, comical and expected at this point. But it was great fourth quarter play, 14 points there. The run game was better, Dave. Getting Deontay Johnson back, of course, a big boost, helps open up George Pickens. But I think the big factor here was the situation of football. Not on third down, they were terrible, but in red zone. To be 3-3 in the red zone, that's more red zone touchdowns in this game than they had the entire season entering this game. I don't know exactly how many plays in the red zone they ran, but it probably came close to equaling what they'd done their first 5 games, which was 21 plays in total inside the red zone. And so to be 3-3 in the red zone, 3 rushing touchdowns when you had 0 coming into the season, a franchise record for longest drought to begin a season, 5 straight games. That was the difference in this contest.
Yeah, certainly was paramount, especially when you consider that what were they at halftime on third downs? 0 for, weren't they? 0 for 5, weren't they?
It wasn't good, whatever it was. It was an abysmal number.
Yeah, and they had a couple, I think, 3 and outs there in that first half, and then one of the final possession, obviously, the first half was just, I think, a 1-play kneel down there. They were 4 of 12 on third down for the game, but they got them when they converted when they mattered. I think 2 or 3 of them, maybe even all 4 of them came. Now, I think one maybe came in the third quarter. 2 or 3 of them obviously came in the fourth quarter. One was at 3rd and 3, and the other was a 3rd and, 8 or 9. One was to Pickens, I think, and one was to Deontay. They're very key conversions in this game. But as far as running the football goes, there were times early on when you were thinking, okay, yeah, all right, especially, and I wrote my 5 keys ahead of the game and put it out on Twitter that, I thought that, to the left tackle and around left end was where they should kind of concentrate these runs, because the Rams haven't been great against them. We have seen the Steelers have some moderate success, I think, against the Ravens the week before, going to the left side on some of those tosses, and they were hitting a couple of those early in this game. Now, in totality, I think they had 6 non-quarter, just 6 runs to either left tackle or left guard in this game. And I think they gained something like 38 or 36 yards or something like that. But I think one of those may have been the the touchdown run by Jalen Warren. It just felt if they kept hammering that left side, that some good things would happen. But I mean, look, your 2 running backs combined, along with one of the end arounds for Calvin Austin, 21 runs for 86 yards. Not monumental by any stretch of imagination, but as far as just looking at it, it looked better. Alex, we saw some guards and tackles on the move
yes.
In this game. We saw linemen able to get out to the second level. Daniels, Moore.
Sayamalu on the touchdown, right?
Sayamalu on the touchdown. Once again, if you look at this statistically, when it comes to the running game, not great, but visually it looked better top to bottom, I think, in the running game.
If you do the Steelers math based on where they've been with the run game, it looks pretty good. Even if you're maybe the Eagles or some other running team, it might not look as strong. But you're right. Those are things we haven't seen. Guards, as you say, get to the second level, more pulling action, and not just the wham crunch blocks, which Pittsburgh has been using, but traditional power football, pull the backside guard, dart scheme, pull the backside tackle, things like that. And so that was an improvement overall, no question about that. You're right, and that was a great call by you. This team ran to the left more. It also seemed like their game plan was to run away from Aaron Donald, which is always a good strategy. And Najee Harris very colorfully said that after the game, we're trying to run away from that mother. You can fill in the blank there. So that was their plan, and that's what Pittsburgh did. And again, the run game, not fantastic, but they weren't, early on they were behind the chains, but later in the game, the run game was able to produce enough. And I thought Pittsburgh did a better job at the point of attack. I thought even Mason Cole, just on first watch, had a better game. And so just across the board, the line generated some movement.
They certainly did. And Aaron Donald, man, they sure seemed like they showed him on the sideline quite a bit, didn't it? How many snaps did he end up playing in this game? Seemed like every time the camera would get on him, he was on the sideline there, and he only had 4. He had 4 assisted tackles, and I think a pressure or 2. But overall, they did a real good job of handling him, because one of my keys was duck Donald. We know what a game record. He played 86% of the snaps, 51 total, 51 of 59 snaps. It just seemed like every time the Fox cameras would put a camera on him, he was over on the sideline getting a breather. So yeah, that was key, running away from him as often as you can, and just not letting him be a game wrecker overall. And I think as you stated, Najee Harris put it pretty blunt, that they wanted to kind of avoid him at all costs, especially in the running game.
And can I just make the broader point, and my terrible take is on this today, I might write about it. I mentioned this earlier in the week when I did my list of the couple of things Pittsburgh's offense does well. I think what they don't get credit for, Dave, is that they scheme away and game plan away some of these top defensive players, especially the pass rushers. Not that Donald or Garrett or those guys become invisible, but they don't become the headline of the game. They don't write the story the way that TJ Watt seems to write the story every single week about making an impact play that changes the game. They faced Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, and Aaron Donald in 4 of their first 6 games combined. Those guys had 6 quarterback hits and 1 sack. That was it. You take those numbers. And so again, Donald made some plays. He got a pressure. He beat Sayamalu, the 1 rep that I believe led to a Kenny Pickett sack by another Rams player. But those guys don't write the headlines. I think Pittsburgh does a really good job of being able to game plan and scheme around those guys, because I think the first thing you have to talk about when you play any team is who are their stars and how do we minimize their stars? And they can minimize the impact of these top dudes. That's a big reason for their success.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And once again, they didn't have really one single guy. You had the oversized edge who's it, Hoyt, that kind of impact. One thing that they're going to have to work on, obviously, is, and I think Pam Oliver reported at halftime after talking to Mike Tomlin that they saw some pressure things that they weren't expecting from the Rams, and that they were going to have to clean that up and adjust in the second half. And Hoyt had an impact, obviously, but within that, one thing that stuck out is they've got to do a better job of identifying some of these blitz packages, if you will, or extra man situations, and do a better job pick. One of those probably should have been a hot, right? Deontay Johnson just goes streaking down when the corner was coming off, and I think they had set 2 extra guys on that particular pass rush on that one there. So they've got to clean some of those who's going to do what on pressure situations.
Sure, I think the last 2 years with Pickett, this team has struggled getting the ball out hot against some of these overload blitzes. They ran that safety blitz twice, and the first time I think Pickett got hit and got the ball away. The second time he got sacked, and Pittsburgh may have adjusted better later in the game. On that second rep, Pickett may have had Hayward on the crosser over the middle as kind of a quick outlet. I'll have to watch the all-22 on that, but I think Pittsburgh needs some better options for some of these pressure packages that are becoming really popular in the NFL. But again, things that were negative moments, but not writing the headline of the game.
Right. I don't know what happened on that first Michael Hoyt sack. I mean, it was Connor's. Him and Chukwuma Okorafor had some sort of miscommunication there or something. I don't know if they thought Connor was supposed to stay in on that or chip better maybe. Within that, but that stuck out. Obviously, the heavy pressure situations or in the first half of this game.
Yeah, you can't have Jaylen Warren blocking the 300-pound, left outside linebacker. So I don't know exactly what happened there. We'll try to take a look at it, but things got cleaned up in the second half. I think those issues seem to be minimized and go away in the third and fourth quarter.
They did a lot better job of handling that stuff in the second half. And I thought, look, Kenny Pickett, we'll talk. I mean, we talk a lot about how he played in the fourth quarter. I thought overall, even in the first 3 quarters, he played all right. Outside of maybe identifying some of this stuff. I tell you, one of the interesting throws I can't wait to go back and look at once the all-22 gets hits is that pass that to George Pickens. That was actually an under center play action pass.
They can do that?
Yeah, they can do it. It's legal.
Okay.
It's legal. And I don't know. It feels like he look, George didn't help himself. Looked like George felt that made a bit of a decision there and short armed that thing. But I wonder if that ball, maybe Kenny was just so surprised to have such a clean pocket. Hey, this is what play action's like. and I turn around, there's nobody in my face there. I do wonder if maybe he could have unloaded that one a little bit quicker there.
Yeah, I'll have to see. I mean, I know what Pickens was doing. He was trying to avoid the shot, and he knows that he has such great hands that he's a guy that could try to make that kind of crazy falling away play. Just didn't in that moment. So we'll have to go back and see it. But obviously, overall, the connection Pickett to Pickens was strong. You're getting more 1v1 looks. The back shoulder game's been working really strong the past 2 games against Baltimore, against Los Angeles. Johnson's return certainly helps, but anytime, I mean, literally anytime that Pickett gets Pickens 1v1, you get single high, safety rotates somewhere else. It's going to be either the vertical, true go ball to Pickens or the back shoulder fade, depending on leverage and, how Pickens' route is looking in relationship with the cornerback. So that has become a money play. And good luck stopping the back shoulder fade of George Pickens, because it is dang near impossible.
Especially if you put that ball where it needs to go, within that. Is that the best the best back shoulder connection right now in the NFL? I know it's hard to say without, going through all of it, but it sure seems like it's 3 or 4 of those a game, and even the one to Deontay Johnson. I mean, it the ball had the ball been placed better, I have no doubt that one probably would have been connected on with Deontay Johnson, but instead it ended up being a pass interference call, ticky tack, but it drew the flag nonetheless there. But yeah, and look, the early shot to Pickens down the right side, a little bit better ball placement on that one. Pickens probably comes down with that one down on the side.
Mm-hmm. Just a bit too far outside where Pickens couldn't stay in bounds there. But that would the back shoulder something was an element missing from the first 4 weeks of the season because Johnson was hurt, because defenses were rolling the safeties over and cornerbacks were playing underneath. They didn't complete one back shoulder throw, I don't think, the first month to George Pickens, and barely attempted one. But the last 2 weeks, been able to open things up more, work on that more, and that's a huge element of Pickens' game and a huge element of Pickett's game.
And wasn't there some sort of stat on like 0 contested catches or something for Pickens through the first, 4 games? Or
he was 0 of 8. Although, again, I don't think any of those were actual back shoulder plays, but You're right. I mean, he's now winning contested. He's winning. He's been able to evolve and expand his game, which has been critical, but his bread and butter, his fastball, is still sideline, go ball, and back shoulder.
We saw a couple of slants in this game. Those are evidently legal. We saw, Deontay looked healthy, didn't he? The pivot route that he ran on the big gainer, the out route on the right side where he got the was that Kobe Durant, I think, on that one that got him to open the gate to the inside and then cut outside. It was a good 4-yard separation on that, and just his overall presence really. As Mike Tomlin said after the game, they weren't able to do some things that other teams have been doing with George Pickens. So his presence alone helped in this one, along with he made a couple of plays in this game as well too. And then you get into the third quarter, a couple of those third down conversions there, one to Deontay and one to George Pickens, were really monumental plays in this game.
Yeah, Deontay looked really strong. Looked like typical Deontay post-catch route running. Looked like he hadn't missed a month, and so that was really valuable. Productive day overall, 5 or 79. I was hoping that yak play was going to be a touchdown. I felt like it was a chance maybe there, but the DB had the angle. I'm not blaming Deontay for that, but a good game overall. Should we pivot though, Dave, and talk about the penalties from the receivers? 3 of them: Pickens, the illegal blindside block, and then a pair of taunting calls, one on Pickens, one on Johnson. Pickens speaking after the game, talking about how the Rams are trying to antagonize him, get under his skin. He says they did not get under his skin. I think they did a little bit based on what transpired. Some of that stuff can feel ticky-tack. Johnson just with the hush to former Steeler Keller Witherspoon. But listen, they cracked down on taunting. What was that, like 2 years ago? I mean, they have a very strict policy against that. You do anything in the face of the opponent, you're going to get flagged for it. You got to know the rules, got to know the situation, and not do those things that harm your team.
People aren't going to like to hear me say it, but I think all 3 penalties, even the blindside block, was justifiable.
100%.
They need to break out. Pickens, and look, Pickens is a physical guy, not afraid to sit anybody down and all like that. But Danny Smith might need to teach him the airplane block there.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you can disagree with it. You can hate the rule. You can hate the direction the NFL is going and call them soft, all those things. That's fine. That's your prerogative. But that's the rule. Everybody knows it. So you can't do that kind of stuff. That's just, you have to know that going in.
And it's not the official's job to know that those two were clowning on each other because they're former teammates. Talking about Deontay and Akello. Deontay probably feels, look, it wasn't, that's my boy. He's on the team. I was just clowning on him a little bit, but it's not the official's job to say, oh, those two played with each other last year, And
even if it was, that you don't get that's not a carve out in the rule where if you guys were friends and teammates that you can, do that kind of stuff. I know it's minor, I know it's small, but this is the rule. You get in somebody's face and, do the hush sign, you're going to get called for that. I mean, what was it? That Bears player that got called for taunting, just kind of staring at the Steelers sideline like 2 years ago. I mean,
that was their former player.
Yeah, who was the linebacker? Not Tuska. Who was it that got cut? Now I'm sending us down a rabbit hole here early.
The Pokemon guy, right?
Was that Tuska?
No, the other.
No.
I'm drawing a blank too on that.
I was thinking about who that was. Oh, Cassius Marsh.
Right.
Old friend Cassius Marsh. Yeah. So, I mean, they call that kind of stuff. And that just, they're not going to give you any leeway with that kind of stuff. So you just got to know the situation.
I tell you, if they end up losing that game, that would be a talking point.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a talking point afterward. Mike Tomlin addressed it after the game, and they just got to be smart. I know the emotion and all like that, and you got to be. How many of those kind of penalties has George had already this season?
Yeah, I'd have to think. I think there was one other instance at least. I mean, I'm not, super concerned long term about it. Hopefully these guys will get these things cleaned up, but just a teach moment for Pickens and for Deontay.
It's not a problem until it becomes a problem, right?
Sure. But anyway, I mean, overall, on the field or between the whistles, those guys I thought were really strong, and it's just good to have two solid outside receivers that's going to help out really every aspect of your game. Probably helps the run game a bit too, because those safeties can't stack the box so confidently, because if they do, they're going to play cover 1, cover 3. That's when Pittsburgh can take their vertical shots with Pickens. So I think it kind of changes the structure of how defenses play you as well, and that helps the run game.
Let's see. Pickens now has 5 penalties on the season: 2 unnecessary roughness, 1 taunting, 1 illegal blindside, and 1 illegal shift. And he's second on the team behind Chikwama Okorafor.
Yeah, not where you want to be overall, but we'll watch it going forward. How about one catch, literally 1 catch for Allen Robinson? That was a huge play. That third down play that set up the 4th and 1 sneak for Pickett. That's a great throw by Pickett, but a great grab by Robinson, contested over the middle, taking a shot to get you in that situation where you can go forward on 4th and inches. That's Robinson's job. Just 1 catch on the day, not flashy, not vertical the way that Pickens and Johnson got, but man, that was a clutch play.
It really was. And as you stated, if he doesn't make that catch, there's no way you're going to go for it in that situation, and you punt the ball back to the Rams with more than 2 minutes left in the game. So really was another play that you circle within there. Pickett on that 1 to Deontay back to the middle of the field. That was a clutch throw as well too. Once again, I think all the talk, and deservedly so, will be about fourth quarter Kenny and all like that. I thought top to bottom it was a lot better representation for him. Especially he got pounded a couple of times early. I was kind of wondering after that first drilling if he's just going to make it to the next series there. But I think he obviously got more comfortable as it wasn't a banner first 3 quarters overall, but to me, just the visual and the TV tape alone, I thought it was probably his most complete game of his career, probably.
Of his whole career? Okay. I mean, the issue is just obviously the lack of production through the first 3 quarters and really the first half. And that's not all on him, obviously, but, there is an element too. Eventually you got to put these points on the board and not play from behind so often and just kind of be the super slow starting type of team. So, I mean, I think the play was certainly better, but at some point the production has to start matching that too and reflecting that improvement.
Yeah, you don't want to leave it to the fourth quarter. And he was great in the fourth quarter. Once again, it was 7 for 7 for what was 100. I don't know, 138 and all like that. So when it counted, he was there again.
Sure. And then again, the 3 rushing scores, 1 by Pickett, 1 by Harris, 1 by Warren, short yardage. That was Pickett with a sneak, Harris from a couple yards out, Warren from 13. So really good job to be able to run the ball. I thought this was their best, just watching it live, their best rushing performance of the season, which was a low bar, but I think it was their best performance.
What was the negative play situation in this one?
Good question.
It didn't feel, we had highlighted in that Ravens game about those backside defense. Didn't seem, were there any of those?
What do you mean?
how we were looking at, some of the schematics of these things just as a whole looked like they were going to fail at the start against the Ravens.
Okay. I can have to check the L22, but no, nothing. And while you look that up, if you're looking that up, I thought Matt Canada called a solid game overall. I thought some of the play calls in the fourth quarter, red zone type stuff, was creative. And granted, Pittsburgh again has not had many opportunities to show their red zone playbook and their calls down there. But there was that one little great boot that Pickett had to Connor Hayward that got them in range, even the touchdown. You kind of get some window dressing with Hayward, I believe, jetting across and Harris running to the left for his score. So again, got to watch L22, but I thought it was a solidly called game by Matt Canada.
I agree. Looking at the negative plays now, you had the 2 sacks, obviously, are negative. You had one run for a -5. That was the Najee to right tackle that
bounced it. Shouldn't have.
Right. But you had the Connor Hayward hold in that anyway.
Probably because he bounced it, probably, and doesn't realize he's going to bounce it. But yeah, point taken.
That was early. You had another Najee right tackle for 2 yards, and you had also had a hold by Okorafor on that one. Let's see, what else do we have here? You had a Najee Harris up the middle for no gain it was later in the game. And then you also had a Najee Harris left guard for no gain. So I don't think other than, first and foremost,
Warren had a reception for a loss on one of those passes to the flat that Pickett may not have been shouldn't have thrown, I should say. Right. But there was that. I can try to look up some of the negative plays here just to compare it, but it did feel reduced.
Right. I think I'm showing 7 negative plays in total here.
Okay. So, but that's including the penalties too.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha. So, have to see exactly how that compares, but it did feel maybe a bit better. It didn't feel like they played from behind the sticks early, but again, second half, I'll have to check some of the numbers. It felt they were in range more often.
Just in general, everything did feel, once again, cleaned up to a degree. You don't want to see the holds, obviously, and you don't like the couple of sacks and the way they handled some of those heavy pressure situations there. But the eye test, if you will, the offense felt better.
Right. So overall, seeing that improvement, the O-line, just again, go back to them. I thought Dan Moore, just again, first watch, seemed to play well. Granted, the Rams don't have any mega edge threats the way that the other teams and other guys he's faced have, but I just thought across the board, the line, run blocking, pass protection was improved.
Yeah, I thought so as well, too. Going to be interesting. I think Sam Malo had a pretty good game overall. I thought Cole may have been Cole's best game of the year. Daniels looked healthy. Dan Moore, look, across the board, that had to be their best offensive line performance, I think. Once again, we saw guys getting to the second level, kind of dropping anchor a lot better in pass protection. We saw guys on the move. Man, more of that, man. Keep those guys on the move like that.
For sure. I'm just trying to look at some of these negative numbers here, and I'm going to have to probably look at them after. But it looks like they had. Is that right? I'm gonna have to look at this afterwards, but we'll try to check that for Wednesday's show.
All
right. Anything else here on the offense, Dave? You want to mention Calvin Austin's role? Obviously reduced with Deontay coming back as we expected. Tight ends not super involved on Washington. No targets. The blocking, I think Jonathan Heitrader said he was impressed. Just first watch of the blocking. We'll have to again check that on the L22. Saw more Rodney Williams in this game. He played how many snaps for Rodney? He probably played 15 or so snaps in this one, if I had to guess.
Let's see exactly how many it was, Alex. It was Rodney Williams had 11 snaps in this game.
Okay. So, yeah, and some of that's because where Connor Hayward can't do some of the, Williams is not a great blocker, but there's a bit more size there. So you can at least get him, in line a bit more than you can with Connor Hayward. Did I think have one target down the seam on kind of a messy play, but
that probably should have been picked. Got away with one there, but You need some of those breaks sometimes in games. And the key stat is it wasn't picked, and they didn't turn the football over in this game, right? For if you're going to be in rock throwing games like this, you better not turn the football over here. And
sure.
Let's see, Calvin Austin had 7 snaps in this game. Washington had 31, which was 53% of the snaps. Allen Robinson, 38 snaps in this game.
Oh, wow. So greatly outsnapped Calvin.
Yeah. Deontay Johnson, just 39 snaps in this one. Felt like more, but and then Connor Hayward had 51 snaps in this game.
Oh, wow. That's more than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, with Deontay, probably just a conditioning thing, making sure he's not too much on his plate there. So imagine that percentage will increase for the Jags game.
Right. Some of these instances, though, you're asking for it, putting Connor on some of these bigger guys. It's not his fault.
Sure.
In some of them there. But anyway, just a more positive feel, obviously, coming out about this offense coming out of this game.
Right, but still work to be done, but there is some progress, and you take that overall. All right, Dave, flipping over to the defense here, where do you want to start? Kind of same story. Thought there was some splash. They were a hot and cold type of group. Run defense, not where it needs to be, but made enough plays. And again, I think fourth quarter, this team shut things down.
Man, I thought that they definitely had. I think you pick your poison here when it came to Cooper Kupp and Puka. And I thought, man, there's no way. You got to make them beat you with Puka was my thought heading into this one. And they damn sure about did it, because Puka had a great game. Overall, they had no answer for the underneath crossers when it came to him. None. It didn't feel like. Cooper Kupp helped them out early with 2 uncharacteristic drops by him. I wonder how much that he did make a couple of catches. Did he even have a catch after those first 2 in the first half? I mean, he only had 2 catches in the game, didn't he?
It's a great question. Yeah. So the last 2 times they faced Cooper Kupp, he's been held to 2 receptions. He was shut out in 2019 and then 2 in this game. Granted, as you said, some drops in there, but that's a good question. I don't think he got involved late.
I don't think so as well.
He did have the 2-point conversion, though.
Right. Okay. Did have the 2-point conversion. That's correct there. But let's see. For players not named Puka Nacua, their eligibles had 6 receptions for 50, 60, 70, 77 yards.
Yeah. And the one was the Atwell touchdown. Right. They kind of blew that one. I mean, where do you assign
extended play? Trying to look back and find the football. Levi, once it got extended so long, I think the tape shows it. He was trying to look back and try to find out what was going on behind him, and when he did, he lost Atwell. And then the ball, it's just Atwell got to the ball before anybody else.
Yeah, I know that's extended play, but I mean, Atwell is just standing all by himself, and he's the smallest dude on the field. He's winning this, jump ball situation. If you're just contesting that, you're probably going to break that one up because you're going to have the size, the length advantage. So it looked like Wallace kind of lost Atwell, and then kind of got caught up in, I think that was Kupp and Peterson or whoever the other DB receivers were, and tried to work over them and just totally lost the football. So I know it's extended play, but I mean, that is really bad plaster defense. Yeah,
I think where he hurt himself was looking back there. He probably thought, man, so what has happened behind me at this point? In a moment that he did that, he lost 2-2.
Right. But to go back to Nacua, yeah, I mean, great game for him. I mean, he also made some unreal catches. That one on that sideline that got challenged by Tomlin with the toe or whatever it was being down. I mean, that's just one of the best catches you're going to see all season. But I think I
saw Football Zebras talk about that on Twitter. Does the heel have to come down? He seems to insinuate, I think, that in that particular situation, that it's not just the toe, that needs to be a continuation of it in that situation.
Okay, I'm not well versed enough on that. To me, the toe being down, I mean, how many how many toe drags did AB do? And the heel never came down. So maybe
But he was working the other way, though. I don't know what that. Let's see if I can find that on him here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find. I think that's in his live blog. I saw something about it with the heel and all like that. But anyway, it's one of those things. I was look. Once they showed that first angle, I thought, oh, he's in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought he was in. I thought, to me, and maybe I'm ignorant of the rules, I thought that was a catch. I mean, the one foot is in, the other toe is in. That, to me, that's a catch.
Okay.
But maybe I can, be convinced to be wrong on that. Obviously, they reviewed it and they came to that conclusion. So I don't know if I ever heard an exact explanation for it. But I thought either way, it's a great play by Nacua.
Right. Look, that guy's going to be around the NFL for a while.
Mm-hmm. But I just thought the lack of speed at corner on the outside between Wallace and Peterson was so evident on those crossing plays in particular. And listen, I get it. Like, giving up the cash on the crosser is going to happen to most corners. You're out leverage. You're trying to rally, trying to break that one up is going to be tough to do on a well-thrown ball with a lot of free space. But you can't allow the yak. The yak in this game was a killer, both from Peterson, from Wallace, Porter missing a couple of tackles. That stuff's where you got to shut it down. And Peterson just does not have the legs, does not have the speed. Wallace, does not have much more than Peterson. And that's a big glaring issue for this team.
A lot of hidden yardage there when it came. Well, not so much hidden yardage because yak is pretty easy to see overall. Let's see. Here's what Football Zebras wrote. Mike Tomlin wasted no time in throwing the challenge flag on the Stafford pass to Nacua. The Rams rushed to the line in an attempt to remove the opportunity to challenge the play. Tomlin decided to pull the trigger as there was enough smoke to bring the call into question. He writes, the key here is not if the receiver got his foot in bounds, but did the motion of the toe and then heel land out of bounds? He writes, sometimes replay can get too focused on the toe and forget to carry the process through to completion. If the foot is coming to the ground, it's not just what hits the ground first, but also if the full foot remains in bounds. You didn't hear that alert, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay, good. Full foot remains in bounds. TV doesn't always understand this subtle but important aspect and will often freeze frame on the initial contact and not let the play run to conclusion. Replay won't make that same mistake as they review the play from the same video, but under their control. Well, he writes that, and it got reviewed anyway, and it still stood.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the refs, I'm sure, are aware of whatever that caveat is, and they played that whole clip through, even on the TV, I think at least once or twice, just to show the rest of the play. So, again, I'm not an expert in that kind of stuff. I respect Football Zebras. I just know that was the call that they made, and to me, that was the correct call.
I know. I only bring that up because I know there was a lot of talk about it at the time. Obviously, a reviewed call and that sort of thing.
Right. But anyway, just overall, a lot of yak in this game, especially from Nacua. You saw Porter though play a lot, and I have to go through my charting, but he was playing on a pretty regular basis. Basically, what I laid out, in base. Not that Pittsburgh was in base much in this game, but Porter was not playing, but he was getting the vast majority of the nickel reps, and there was a pretty heavy rotation. They were trying to work all those guys on the field, whether it was Porter, Peterson, Wallace, Sullivan. And it's tough to do against the Rams because they're always 11 personnel. Right. And so you're trying to how do you get all your guys on the field and that kind of stuff. So I don't know exactly the rhyme or reason. I'll have to go through the rest of my charting later today, but Porter playing easily his most snaps of the season.
Absolutely. 53 of 68 defensive snaps, 78% for him in this game.
And I'm good with that. He technically might not be starting, but I think that's just fine for Porter.
Right. Now the disappointment is what happens if you come if he goes backwards. Now fans aren't going to like it, but that's probably going to be his role moving forward there. And look, a couple of key breakups in this game. One late on the third down, one early in the game. The biggest thing I think to point to him was the couple of the missed tackles there. The one was it Higbee or Nacua that ducked down real low on that one? It looked like Porter had good form and all like that. He just wasn't low man and just couldn't finish it up.
That was on Nakua, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, where he missed the tackle there. So let me try to see how much yak did they have in this game. If I can pull that up here briefly, the Rams did. Where can I find that number? Looks like 99 yards of yak in this contest against Pittsburgh. So not a number you want to allow as a defense.
And how many total yards receiving did they have in this game?
I'm trying to see that too. Give me
231.
On Stafford, looks like 231. So how much? What is that percentage? 99, 231. So
well,
43%.
Look at the four. Take the receptions and divide that by take the 90 something yards and divide it by 14.
99 divided by 14.
Right.
That is just over 7.
That's
right?
That's high. That obviously way too high. You want that 4 or less easily.
Mm-hmm. Right. So how do you solve that? Cornerback's going to be a top need for next year. How do you handle it in season? Again, Porter's going to see his role expand. Should note, and I don't know if this was injury or if they just benched Wallace, but James Pierre picked up a couple snaps late in this game at right corner without Wallace on the field. So we'll monitor that going forward.
The Steelers lost the TOX stat, turnovers and takeaways, by -2 in this game.
And yet they won. You don't see -2 in TOX too often in a victory.
No, not very often. You probably see it a little bit more than you used to, but as the numbers state, and it's a long running stat that if a team is +2 in any one game, it's 80% or better win ratio.
Except when you play the Pittsburgh Steelers, because all the stats don't matter, man. It's just that's the resiliency of this bunch. But
run defense, man. I mean, the Rams had a couple of backup running backs in there, and it seemed like they were getting 7 yards a run for a running back or getting stuffed. It seemed like it was feast or famine within that. They still got to clean up some of those fills, and I'm not sure. It's going to be interesting to see the end zone view on all this. I'm not so sure if some of that wasn't on the linebackers in this game with some of these fills overall. Now there obviously were a couple instances where the defensive linemen were getting, but my main takeaway is I'm not so sure a lot of that was defensive lineman related.
I'll have to see. I mean, again, because the Rams are such a heavy 11 personnel team, I think they were only out of 11 for maybe 5 snaps in this game. They went 12. That puts you in your nickel defense a lot. And so you're trying to play the run with smaller people. I know the Rams have, they don't have their tight ends out there either, but they got some big body blockers and Cup and Nakua. So that helps them. And Pittsburgh, just is not able to stop the run as well without a great, nickel corner that can stuff the run like a Mike Hilton. So that's a challenge in this game, but still, too much penetration or not enough penetration. D-line got moved too much. I thought overall, you're right. The linebackers probably contributed as well. We'll have to check the tape, but either way, the Rams made too much hay on the ground.
Minkah Fitzpatrick led the team. We keep saying that Minkah Fitzpatrick can't continue to lead this team in tackles, yet he continues to. What's he on pace for now?
147, which would be Steelers' single season record since tackles were reliably tracked in 1987. The current record's James Ferrier in 2003 with 141. If Fitzpatrick ends the year with 147, it'll be the third most tackles by a DB since 2001 across the entire NFL. So that is, I mean, he's a great tackler. Unfortunately, we get to see it too often for my liking.
Let me tell you, and it's not like, he might not be the biggest fan of having to continue to do this, but he sure does come screaming down in the box.
I mean, he's great at it. The 3rd and 5 stop early in the game. They tried to run, I think, on Pittsburgh's dime personnel. Didn't work. A couple of those were, he's filling the alley extremely well. So, again, seeing it too often, but I've said this for years. I think his tackling is an underrated part of his game. Yeah, the interceptions are not there, but he is saving so many big plays by his tackling ability.
Yeah, just I would like to go a couple of games about talking about him only having 2 or 3 tackles in a Steelers win.
Right. And they were trying to play him in the box less because they're defending the pass and all the 11 personnel, but he was still having to come down and make plays, and he was playing in the box in some of those key moments. So, I mean, you're happy he can do it, but you're right. This is not something that can continue.
Yeah. Look, still got it. I mean, they won, but you got to tighten up against that run. They gave up 7 explosive plays in this game as well, too. And that's probably 2 or 3 more than you'd like to see this team do it. And obviously Puka responsible for quite a few of those. That extended play that we talked about to Tutu for a touchdown was obviously one of them. They hit that out route to Cooper Kupp that I talked about in the podcast there. But look, they did just enough on defense, and especially in the fourth quarter. I mean, what the Rams had the ball twice in the fourth quarter. They ran 8 plays for 25 net yards, had 2 first downs.
And what was time of possession? It was minimal, obviously, but it was a couple minutes in the fourth quarter.
Looks like 3-0. Wait a minute.
No, it looks like 113 and
152.
So that's, call that, what is that?
303, right? 303.
I'll trust your math. So yeah, 3 minutes of the fourth quarter time of possession. I mean, that is, again, Pittsburgh, I thought, played their best quarter of the entire season in the fourth quarter of this game.
The Rams had the ball 5 times in total in the second half. And boy, the opening possession of that second half. Let's talk about that.
Where exactly? Well, I'm sorry, with the TJ Watt. Yeah, I was looking at the other one with the touchdown there that came after that. Yeah, I mean, I know, we're used to TJ Watt being just incredible, but even I was amazed and like super excited for what TJ Watt did on that interception. That is an incredible play, even by his lofty standards. I broke it down this morning for the site. Out empty, the Rams are, it's Haas Y Juke, running that option out over the middle to Cooper Kupp, which they run a ton. It's all over their tape. I'm sure Watt recognized that, and to vacate his hook zone to come over to play that middle zone and pick that off. If you want to know how impressive that play is, just watch that play back and look at Matthew Stafford. It takes him about 10 seconds to realize Watt has picked that ball off. He has no idea. It's inconceivable to him that Watt could make that kind of play. But then again, he's TJ Watt.
Just move Watt to nickel.
He's your best pass rusher, your best DB. Somebody made the joke that TJ Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick are the best middle linebackers on this Pittsburgh Steelers team, which made me laugh.
He played that awesomely. Read the eye, talked about it after the game. Just read the whole thing as if he was a defensive back in this game, and it was an incredible play overall for him to read that and break on the football and the hands, man. I mean,
right.
Soft hands. Maybe he does need to. Maybe he does need to play a little bit of tight. That's some tight end hands coming in, coming into play there. Nothing.
He's got a mangled finger, and he's still making that catch.
Right. Probably, and I'm willing to bet he wasn't on the jugs machine last week. Was he? Nothing about that play not to like. Absolutely nothing.
Again, that's not his zone. It's not his responsibility. And to come over and make that play. And with a great catch, like you said, just a true receiver type, tight end type of catch. I mean, I can't get over how good that play was.
I guess the only thing he didn't do, damn him, he didn't score.
But who
got sat down at the end over there? Was it Leal? Somebody got sat down.
I think it was Leal. Yeah, he got knocked down. Yeah, but Watt, 2 hands on the football when he gets tackled. That's a tight end instincts kicking in, protect the football. So. Again, not a lot of impact as a pass rusher, but can you impact the game in different ways? And Watt does that every single week.
And you want to talk about key moment in the game, and yeah, it was first play of the second half there, but technically that's back-to-back possessions, right? Yeah, the Steelers had received the kickoff and then had the kneel down there, but you might as well call that back-to-back possessions. And once again, they had ended the first half with a touchdown, and you're thinking, this one's fixing to get away from him here, and especially if the Rams are able to come down in this opening possession and kill time or get field position or, God forbid, score in some instance there, and then one play later, you're breaking news, you're in the red zone, right?
Yeah, it's a great point by you, because the moment that Atwell touchdown happened, my second thought after, being upset about the touchdown being allowed is the Rams get the ball a half, and they double dip and really start to put some separation in this game. And so for Watt to come out first play of the first half to pick that one off and totally change the complexion of that scenario in the game, it means so much in so many ways.
And then the offense gets a little bit of confidence because they bury it.
Took him to 3rd and goal in the quarterback sneak, but we'll take it any way that you can take it. And so, defense helping offense, that's been the mantra all year, whether that's defensive touchdowns or giving the offense super short fields. But yeah, it was critical in this one.
I think is your charting done? How many times did TJ Watt switch sides and talk about Mike Tomlin and TJ Watt talking about why Watt played I want to say it was like 3 or 4 snaps Watt spent on the right side. How close was I?
Yeah, I have it written down. I don't have it typed up yet to be able to filter that easily. That's about right there. It was roughly, I'm looking at one. I'll have to look at it for sure for Wednesday's show, but 3 or 4 snaps sounds right. So yeah, they never do this. TJ Watt's always left outside linebacker, but they actually flipped him to his old spot, his rookie year spot at right outside linebacker for about 3 or 4 snaps. And Tomlin just saying after the game he hated to see, I forget the exact quote, but to see a team take a guy like Watt away, he wanted to try to do something to change that. I don't know how effective it was, but it was interesting because it's not like every team tries to take away TJ Watt, but I think whatever Tomlin saw in particular caused him to actually change up Watt's alignment for the first time in forever. And
one of those times they did it, those two swapped right before the snap.
Well, I think on the one, the tight end motioned across, and so then Watt and Herbig flipped to try to get away from the tight end. I know on the one, they flipped, or Watt was on the right side, and I heard Stafford can the call, and they checked to a run to Herbig's side. So I bet you that was one thing the Rams were trying to adjust to. But yeah, I think some of that was just based off of the tight end alignment and motion.
Boy, Alaric Jackson over there at left tackle had his hands full, didn't he?
Ooh. Yeah, he had a tough game, and he got beat by Highsmith early. Nick Herbig, congratulations to him, his first NFL sack, and spoke about that after the game using the same move that Highsmith did earlier in the game to get a pressure that led to an Ogunjobi sack. So, I mean, Herbig is his football IQ is so insane. I mean, just a sponge.
That get off is something with him for sure, and he easily won that edge and turned the corner. I think that and he only played. What was it? 13? How many snaps did he play in this game? He played 12 snaps in this game, and I promise you, it sticks out in the TV tape. Two run defense plays that he was able to look to get off blocks pretty nicely on, and I think one was he credited with a tackle on that. Forgot to look about
he's got a tackle for loss, 3 tackles overall.
Right. What I'm trying to say is he showed up other than just that sack in those limited amount of and those run defenses came with him on the left side.
Okay, yeah, that's for 12 snaps to have 3 tackles, a tackle for loss, a quarterback hit, and a sack. It's a pretty good day at the office, I would say, for 12 snaps.
Yeah, and look, we worried about him with that size aspect and all, but right now it obviously not talking about a huge plate of snaps for him so far, but he's doing what he's asked to do. He's able to play on both sides, and so far there has been no real size limitations. And man, he's just you mentioned the sponge aspect. He is probably not afraid to ask those two guys questions, or Golden for that matter.
Well, I mean, that was a story of the summer when Herbig was tearing it up in training camp. I mean, every day they would talk about whether it was Herbig being interviewed or, Highsmith or Watt or Golden about, Herbig always talking to those guys, picking their brains, watching their moves. Highsmith, I think, even took a move from Herbig, and Herbig took a move from Highsmith and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, just a real worker, great attitude, great kid overall. I will say on the sack, the left tackle was on tape delay out of his stance, but still, it was a great rep by Herbig and a great finish as well.
Look, he's got a good get off. He can win those, for ones that are even, where a tackle doesn't get off properly.
When the all-22 drops, Dave, I know exactly where you're going to go on
No,
the Keanu Benton swim move. I mean, that's going to be a gem to see from the all-22.
Man, that club.
Or was it the club? Was that what the move that he used?
It looked like a club to me. He smacks. He uses that right club against Dotson, and just once again the quick hips and all to get through, and gets the hit on Stafford on that play.
Yeah, I mean, and he had multiple pressures. I'm looking at my charting. I'm trying to see how many pressures I put him down for. I got one. I'm not trying to flip too many papers here. 3, at least 3, maybe one more. 4. Yeah, I got him down for 4 pressures in this game. And I don't know how many snaps he had. Not a ton in this game. I mean, so that's, like Herbig, a lot of quality work and probably not a ton of snaps. How many did he get, Dave? He didn't start. Leal got the nod over him.
Didn't play as many as you think he did. 19 snaps, just 28% overall. And look, he has earned more playing time for sure for what he's been. I'll say that I'll put him in the same classification. I mean, obviously Herbig's not going to get on the field more, barring injury and all, but and maybe not Porter either. But what those 3 guys are being asked to do as defensive players, they are doing it.
And they do it a little bit more, at least with Benton, to play 19 snaps. Now the D-line was a bit healthier, but, I hope when Cam comes back, his snaps don't go down to like 10 or something,
Boy, it'd be nice to get Cam back, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I will say this too. Ogunjobi looked fresh once again, and I don't know how Montre. We only had the TV tape to go off of, and yeah, there was some run pushing around up front at times there. Man, Montrezl is playing better than what I thought he played this year. His get off is really good, Alex, especially in pass rush situations. And I think we've said that a couple of times so far this season. Is he a complete player? Is he an all pro? Is he, how many other teams would he start for across the league? I don't know, but at least in the TV tape, I found myself going, man, that was a good get off. There was a couple other times where I thought he engaged in blocks and got off and made a couple of tackles that way, as did Benton. So if they can clean up that run defense, man, and once again, we'll have to see how much of that's related to gap filling by the linebackers and how much 11 personnel caused that. But man, if they could just get this run game cleaned up and get more opportunities on second and third to get after people. They mugged the gaps quite a bit in this one, did they not?
On third down. Yeah, they did, which has become pretty common across the NFL. So I think Pittsburgh maybe leaned on that a bit more in this game. So that was an element. I don't know.
What was the blitz rate? It felt like, and look, you had that stat from ESPN ahead of this game of Matthew Stafford in his QBR and completion percentage when under pressure. It felt like they were sending numbers quite a bit in this one.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number yet. I'll have that for Wednesday, but it was a heavy blitz. I'm looking at my paper charting right now. I mean, yeah, they came out blitzing. The inside backers blitzed a ton in this game, some nickel pressure or nickel blitzes with not a lot of pressure from Peterson there. So I would say it was probably similar to the Ravens game in terms of how much they blitzed, probably about half the time. Okay. Some of those were green dogs though, where the tight end the back stays in and they blitz. But still, there was definitely some design pressure in this game. But I don't think this run defense will become serviceable until Cam returns. I think at this point it's pretty clear. We're many weeks into this thing and it's not really gotten a whole lot better. So probably is what it is, and you just have to hope that Haywood's return will really be the thing that beefs things up.
All right, what else on defense caught your eye, Alex?
Let's see what else. Inside backers have to kind of see a lot of Holcomb, Alexander early. Roberts a bit later in the game. I mean, that's kind of, I guess, everything to talk about. Again, I thought Benton on limited snaps had a really big impact.
It's kind of a bend don't break type situation again, and they got fortunate with their kicker missing 2 field goals, and man, shout out to Steelers Nation. You knew it was coming just based off of the Chargers game a couple of years ago at SoFi, and man, they at one point during the broadcast they said 60-40. It felt like more than that, didn't it? Steeler
Especially
fans there
in the second half. You could really feel the crowd come alive as Pittsburgh got back in that game, took the lead. I thought, the Rams had to work on a silent count. I thought the crowd noise in the fourth quarter really played in Pittsburgh's favor, so it became a home game, I think, for the final frame of that thing.
Where was I going with this? The 2 missed field goals and a missed extra point certainly didn't help the Rams. Let's talk about. You got anything else on defense?
No, that should cover it. Well, we'll reconvene Wednesday when we go through the all 22.
Let's talk about the pass interference on Witherspoon combined with the dead ball taunting by Deontay.
So is the thought there, how is that offset if it's a dead ball after the play versus something that happened during the play? Is that where you're going?
Yeah, that's there. I'm not just going there. A lot of people are going there right now. But I don't. Once again, I'm going to defer to Football Zebra on this. Whatever you want to think about him and what he does, I've followed him for a long time. He was asked about this. What about the offsetting penalties in the Steelers and Rams pass interference during the play and then taunting after the play? Should it have been offsetting? His reply to that on Twitter was live ball and dead ball combined. If fouls are all by one team, then select one, decline the others. If any number are by both teams, offset and repeat the down. Exception to that is if there's a foul against an official, that is enforced as separate.
So he's saying it was called correctly by the officials.
That's what he is saying.
Okay. Again, my knowledge on some of the technicalities of the rules is not up to par, and that's what Football Zebras do. That's their whole site. So I'll defer to them on this one.
All right. So that I'm not. I'm going to have to go pull because there's 2 different kind of rule books and all. You got to go find that real detailed one. And man, it's long. I have to go back and try to double check that at some point. But I know a lot of people are, and really at first blush, I was kind of under the assumption that, well, shouldn't a pass interference be first and then thus a first down and then the yardage marked off after that as a dead ball. But obviously that wasn't the case.
Right. What happened on Pickens? Because it was still a first down after the taunting, right? They just moved them back. They treated that as
right.
I guess kind of separately though, because they ruled, catch first down, and then they assessed the taunting after that.
Right, but because it was a catch, right?
Right,
and it moved the chains, and then the dead ball gets assessed after that.
Yeah. All right, so there's that, and then you could talk about the fourth down sneak. Right. Did they spot that well? And McVay could challenge because it was technically before the 2-minute warning. He was out of timeout, so he was unable to challenge. No official booth review on that. I don't know if he got it or not, but that's where they spotted it, and it's pretty hard to tell.
It felt, at least from, and really, I think the live shot of the play might have been the best shot of it, I think. But I tell you what, I thought he was short. I thought he got a generous spot. However, did you see anything conclusive enough in the replays that would have respotted the ball?
No, I don't think you did. I think in those sneaks, it's hard to see anything at all, let alone anything conclusive. So I think in those situations, it's hard to overturn the initial ruling.
And I don't think we'll see what the all 22 says. I don't think we're going to get a better angle than some of the angles that they had within that. I think they got a generous. I do think they got a generous spot, but I'm not convinced that unless there was some angles that they didn't show, I'm not convinced it gets overturned because it not being conclusive.
Sure, I'm with you. So it was definitely some debate about that, but that was the ruling, and certainly Steeler fans will take it. Did
it take McVay half 15 seconds to figure out that he was out of challenges, and then it was above 2 minutes left. Seemed like he was doing some math there.
Yeah, I think he's maybe a little hoping that there could be a review from the officials on that, but obviously they were unable to do so.
Right. Would have made for an interesting final 2 minutes of the game if they turned that ball over. Look, I was fully on board for them going for it. I'm sure you were too. In that situation, especially as good as Kenny has been on these sneaks and all like that. But definitely something that's going to be talked about these next couple of days.
And I meant to mention with the offensive section of us talking about this game, congrats to the offense to finishing this thing out. I mean, eating the last 5:28 of the game, Pickett after the game talked about how they weren't able to do the 4-minute offense and really close things out. What was it? The Raiders game, they had a little bit of time left in that one. Some other examples this year, the botched nature of the Ravens game, for example. So for the offense to have a true, last possession defense never has to go back on the field. That is huge.
When is the last time we've seen a in the game in the 6 to 4 minute range of getting the football to kill the clock for a win?
Probably been a while. Yeah, I don't know exactly when it's been. I can try to look it up though if you want me to.
It just ran through my head. You can tell me on Wednesday if you want to.
Yeah, but it was, really big overall. I mean, 4-minute offense closing the game out. That is what teams talk about. That's a great opportunity to do that. And so they some controversy on the 4th down play there, but overall, a really key drive.
Special teams.
Yeah, I mean, that was huge. You talk about the Rams missing their 3 kicks. I mean, Marr misses a 53-yarder. Boz makes his 53-yarder. That's a huge difference, huge swing in that game. And Harbin, I thought, was decent overall. No big miscues. So, Boz is money.
You had that Calvin Austin bobble there, kind of made you lose your breath for a moment, but he ended up coming down with that. And just overall, let the other team make mistakes on special teams, and that certainly happened.
Right. He spins too much on every punt return. He loves to spin. I'm waiting for that ball to come out. One of those times he gets popped, but he recovered, and he didn't go full Olszewski on us, so we'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Dave, any other final thoughts here for this game?
I think we got most of it, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well. So we can get to a couple of reader emails and close out today's show.
Let's see here if I can sort these here. George O'Daughtery writes in, "Hi guys, I have a question about Steelers etiquette. Was it wrong for me to stand and sing "Oh Canada" after the touchdown pass? Oh no, this was from an early one. I think he did he have a tag in on that? Here it is. Dear David Knox, you add so much happiness to our lives. George O'Daughtery and I are part of a rather exclusive club called Organic Chemistry Professors Who Love the Terrible Podcast, is what he had to say. All right. Thanks for that, George.
Thank you, George.
Jeff writes in, good morning. 2 questions. 1, in all seriousness, is it possible to have an offensive scheme that only works on a tired defense? He says, sounds crazy, I know, but how many games now have we seen now that the offense only comes alive in the 4th quarter when the defense is tired and the score is close enough that we can still run the football? Number 2, before the season, all I heard was Patrick Peterson has never played inside, and that would be a bad idea. Now all I hear from analysts is that Patrick Peterson should be playing inside full time and was not signed to play outside cornerback role. Which one is it? Well, Jeff, I'll tell you this. They need better out of Patrick Peterson wherever they put him.
Yeah, I mean, I shared my concerns. I mean, there were a couple concerns. One was, how well he would transition to a new role. But I think the larger concern was, would they be a man-heavy type of team with Peterson that probably is not a man-heavy type of corner at this stage of his career? Now, Pittsburgh's been into more of his own personality this year, but the thought was basically, can this guy still play on the outside at 33? I think we're realizing that he can't. So I think you have to move him inside. I don't know if it's really another option at this point.
Right. And as far as the offensive scheme that works on, look, I just be glad to get it done in the 4th quarters is my response to that. I mean, yeah, they need to pick it up in the first first three quarters more than they have. But I think if you go back and watch this game again on just even on the TV tape, you're going to feel a little bit better about this thing.
Yeah, just real quick, Dave, to answer your question, just a rough eyeball of this. I believe the last time Pittsburgh used at least the final 5 minutes plus to close out a game was back in December of 2016 against the Bengals, where they ran, I think, 13 plays and took off 553 on the final drive to never give the ball back to Cincinnati. So I don't know if that was the one where they pulled the guard a million times to end that game. Maybe it was, but it's been 7 years.
Let's see here. Nick Shuley writes in, Alex, today just got around to watching the highlights from yesterday's win, and boy, it's nice to see the Steelers get a win, especially on the West Coast where they usually struggle. Yeah, now one regular first win in California against the Los Angeles versions of the Rams, not the Super Bowl. I know that's a mouthful, but good to see them get a win out west against the Los Angeles version of the Rams in the regular season. He says it was also very nice to see Deontay Johnson come back and make an impact with a solid game. I know he's had his warts since he got drafted, but he's grown into a great homegrown veteran leader for the wide receiver group. He says, I'm curious, though, with his contract set to expire after next season, do you guys think he'll get another extension? I think it's way too early right now to think about that. My gut reaction would be no, but it's still way too early to kind of speculate about what Deontay Johnson future will be after his current contract expires.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be an appetite to want to keep him around. Still playing good ball overall, but we'll cross all those bridges later on.
Berkey writes in, love Alex's stats of the weird. Here are a couple for you. The Steelers have the most wins with a negative point differential of -24, he writes. Most wins of any team that has scored less than 104 points through 6 games. He says, by the way, the Steelers have scored 3 or more points than the great Joe Burrow Bengals. Steelers are tied for third in the league in turnover differential at +6, tied for second in giveaways with 6. Tied for second in giveaways with 6. I guess that's lowest.
Yeah, fewest giveaways.
Have we ever seen a team that doesn't turn the ball over yet can't win the time of possession stat in a game? The Steelers are 30th in time of possession. Crazy, he writes. One more. I thought maybe the Steelers had as many wins for as TD passes, but Kenny Pickett has 5. Can we beat the Jags without a TD pass this week? Let's go. All right, have not checked those stats, Berkey, but we'll take your word for that. Cosmo writes in, like the play design on a touchdown where Warren and Harris were both on the field. I was expecting a Chase Claypool style goal line in around there. Happy to see some pulling linemen throughout the game. What'd you think about the play design on the on the pass to Connor down there?
On the play action, yeah, I mentioned that earlier. I thought it was a nice design overall. It was a good fake, and that's just we're talking about easy wins for the offense. What are the layups you can give your offense, give your quarterback to get some easy yardage, and that's a great example of it. So yeah, again, need to check the tape, but I thought Canada, watching it live, called a really good game.
Let's see. Happy to see some pulling linemen throughout the game. How are our tight ends such a non-factor in the passing game? He writes, what kind of route concepts do they have to get them involved in? I think to get for non-Pat Freiermuth, which got 3 more games of that, I think you need to see the stuff that you saw with the Connor play there. And I think, you know what Washington did a lot, or I shouldn't say a lot of, but I mean, he was either red zone or a lot of those misdirection kind of leak outs with him. Get short passes, kind of blocking, disengaging, and kind of leaking out to the flat, getting the ball, and then letting the big guy do stuff out in space. That might be a way to get him involved a little bit more in the passing game. And unfortunately with Rodney Williams, I just it struggles for him to get on the field and get snaps anyway. But yeah, I mean, former wide receiver with him, you could probably draw one or two things up for him. But until Pat Freiermuth comes back, as far as, and you see these kind of spot zone type things like they tried to get the ball to Washington in that game against the Ravens there, that was broken up from behind there. Outside of that, it is probably going to be a bit of a chore to get the tight ends involved in the passing game, unless they're kind of those short kind of peel out type routes.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the play action boot stuff like the Hayward, one of his receptions is going to be the most frequent way to get some of these tight ends to football. I mean, Washington's a red zone guy. That's even what he was in training camp when he made some plays, but they barely been in the red zone until this game, and they were running it with success in the red zone. But yeah, that leak out idea is a great call where you kind of fake like he's going to block, and he just kind of goes out to the opposite side, and you throw it back to him. Maybe there's a chance to do something with that. So hopefully with more red zone possessions, more red zone opportunities, some of that stuff will emerge.
One final question he has in here. The Steelers post-game meal was In-N-Out Burger. Have you guys had them before? I don't think Alex has been out west to have an In-N-Out Burger out here. A popular chain out west, obviously. He says, as a Californian, I think they're just all right. This is going to be blasphemous on my part, being as how I've now resided out west for 7-8 years and partaken in all like that. I just think In-N-Out Burger's kind of meh.
I've heard that a lot from California, West Coast people.
And maybe I don't. Maybe I'm a West Coast snob now. I don't know, but I'd much rather go. Do you have you guys don't have Jack in a Box, do you, or anything like that? I think Jack in a Box is very popular out west out here. I think they have a much better. I think their food all the way around Jack in a Box is better than In-N-Out Burger, and I'll probably get some hate mail for that, but I don't care.
I think there actually might be one near me, the internet says. I don't know if it closed down or if it's open or whatever the case is, but I'll go check that out sometime, Dave.
Rolling real quick. Good afternoon, guys. Enjoy the site. Love the podcast each week. By the way, they are never too long. Anyway, to the point, you guys have been hammering home something I've been thinking about for a while now. It's not a player problem with this team. It's a coaching problem, specifically the coordinators. I believe Mr. Rooney, Coach Tomlin are doing the team an injustice by hiring subpar coordinators. I don't if money is the issue, or if he says he doesn't know if money is the issue or bad evaluation by the organization. I would love to see them be as thorough hiring as they were Weidel and Kahn. Look at Dotson, Witherspoon, Green, Spillane, etc. All examples of bad Steelers thriving with different coaching systems. I miss the days of Munchak, Haley, and Flores as quality coaches on the staff. What are your thoughts on this, fellas? Thanks for the insight, Roland. First and foremost, look, I stated in this in my 5 keys, I thought they should go after those corners in this game. And Pickens had a history with both those guys. You know, one at Georgia and Kendrick, and obviously Witherspoon. And look, that played in their favor. I thought the Steelers wide receivers overall got the better of their corners. Look, Dotson played well up until this point. I don't know how he graded out. I don't think he was awful in this game by any stretch of the imagination. Kendrick, Green, I mean, Green had a good game against, represented himself well before he went down. But I'm willing to bet Green's just a backup in the NFL. And I love me some Bob Spillane, but are we going to be talking about Bob Spillane in a couple more years from now? And, the couple of interceptions that he had, you can't fault him for them, but they landed right in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, and look, coordinators overall, I get it. I get to talk about that, but we're losing sight of the fact that this team's 4-2 right now. And what did we say at the top of the show? 11-4 in their last 15 since the bye last week. Paint that however you want to paint it, but going 11-4 in a 15 span, I don't care where that span happens. That's impressive no matter how you want to carve that thing up.
Sure. Like you said earlier, I think you said it well top of the show. The NFL, it's hard to win. And it does not mean we can't critique in victories. We can also praise in losses. We certainly do both. We'll continue to do both. In Canada, we've criticized him a lot. There's really not much new ground to cover at this point. And I thought he called what looked like a pretty good game against the Rams. I know that's been the talking point about they don't pay those guys enough. We have no idea how much those guys make. And other teams, that's not public information. We have a rough idea what Tomlin makes, and that's about it. And he's one of the higher paid coaches in football. So, that's all kind of speculation. So, I mean, I think Austin is a pretty good DC. Canada, certainly not been a fan of the body work overall, but we'll talk about those things in the offseason whenever coaching changes could happen.
Right. I mean, Canada's done nothing in my book right now to warrant retaining his job, but there's a lot of season left, obviously, and all. Look, Roland, I get everything that you're saying here, but and we are as critical about this team as probably anyone that you will find. But in the flip side, you've got to respect the fact that somehow this team has gone, like I said, 11-4 in the last 15 games for whatever reasons that is.
Yeah, there's a resolve with this team that most teams don't have, and that kind of wills them to victory in moments where you kind of sit there. I mean, I think besides if you're a fan of the opposing team, besides the Raiders game, I think it's the only instance where the opposition would say, how do we were the better team? Like, I think the Browns probably think they were the better team in their loss, did it with the Ravens, did it with the Rams, and they'd probably be accurate about that assessment in terms of that they were the better team than the Steelers. And yet the Steelers come out on top. So that's in their nature. It's in their DNA, and it's been a long-standing streak under Mike Tomlin.
Look, Steelers were the better team in the fourth quarter, and really probably a good part of that third quarter too. And they were in, as Chris Long said, don't let them hang around.
Yeah, that is for sure.
All right, time to get out of here, I think, right?
Yep, we'll come back on Wednesday with y'all 22, hear from Mike Tomlin on Tuesday, and see what else there is to report.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Find the donate button in the navigation. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Alex and I will try to digest the all-22 by Wednesday morning. Talk about this game and more. Talk about Mike Tomlin Tuesday. Start getting ready for the Jaguars. Busy week ahead for the 4-2 Pittsburgh Steelers. So until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.